Welcome to Notes on a Painting. Notes on a Painting is a podcast by artist Olivia Kemp and art historian Esme Garlake. Together each week we will discuss a painting that one of us has chosen and researched. Our choices of painting will reflect where our tastes differ and overlap across the history of art.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. You're somewhere else.
Yes, I'm in Oxford for a couple of weeks. I was meant to be going to Italy, but my passport expired and I didn't realize.
Ooh,
So I'm staying with my family here, and it's very nice. I will still go, so it's
okay.
fine. Yeah. And where are you? You're in
I'm
somewhere in Scotland.
I'm in Ayrshire.
Okay.
Um, yes, but I didn't bring any sound equipment, so apologies for the echo.
I just hope, yeah, my sound is also okay. I don't know, but yeah.
We'll know later.
Yes. So what painting have you chosen this
I
week?
have brought you a portrait of Susan Avery, which was painted in 1821 by Sarah Miriam Peale, and it lives in the National Museum of Women in the Arts, Washington.
Wow. National Museum of Women in the Arts. A
Mm,
whole separate museum.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
very cool.
It is very cool. I,
Yeah.
I think I've been on their website once or twice before, but I didn't
Mm.
realize sort of quite how extensive their collection is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Do you ever make
Great.
Washington to go check out?
I know. Lots on my list. Yeah. So shall I describe it or do you want to do the sources first?
I'll do the sources so I don't forget.
Okay.
So I am known to do that. So the National Museum of Women in the Arts website,
Yeah.
obviously. Obviously, Wikipedia entry on the artist. The Bennett Collection website. um, an ArtNet article by Sarah Cascone. And there's a book which I'll mention later because I wasn't actually able to read it, but it looks really damn good, but it's only available in America.
Oh.
Um, but I'll bring that up later because I think that's worth highlighting because it sounds
Mhm.
amazing.
Okay, cool.
Would you
Great.
like
So
to describe the work?
yes, I have it on my phone, so I'll be looking down
Okay.
while I do it. But so this is a portrait of a woman sat on a chair. I guess it's from kind of her, you can see just about up to her knees, kind of on the chair. I always find portraits hard to describe. Like where do
You
you
say that about
begin?
landscapes as
I say
well.
it about all of them. I think you're really good at describing them, and I find it really hard. Because it's
Brilliant.
like it's a white woman dressed in fancy attire. She's looking at, so she's against quite a dark background. She's looking at the viewer with a little bit of a smile, or
Mm,
like closed mouth. Her hand, one of her hands is resting on the arm of the chair. And she's got quite a few fancy different details of, so she's got her hair is dark brown, black, but it's braided and like up on top of her head, and then with these ringlets down the side, gold earrings, dangly earrings, a ruff, which is very spiky looking.
mm.
It's not like a proper old Dutch ruff. It's quite
No, it's sort of like
lacy,
frilly-ish.
frilly, but a real texture around her neck. You can also see her neck as well. It's not like covering it up. Um, and then she's in a black dress. Again, I'm sure in real life you can see the texture much more of
Mm.
it. It seems quite textured. Um, but it's all black, and then she has a kind of gold chain hanging on her chest, almost like a charm, and a red scarf with lovely embroidery that's wrapped around her, and then her other hand is on her lap, holding it. Um, And actually, on the back of the chair, there's the red material as well. So I don't know if it's a kind of drape thing. Um, yeah, she looks very well to do. She's got rosy cheeks and the classic, she looks very like at the time she would be a beautiful, very elegant lady.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, I think also with portraits, so much of it seems to, I don't know about this one. Sometimes you feel like you get a real sense of the viewer. I
yeah.
find it harder when they're more idealized like this. Um, she just seems very affluent.
Yeah.
That's my main takeaway. I'm not quite sure. The expression is fairly relaxed, gazing at us. But yeah, I'm looking forward to learning who she was. And also it's interesting that she's being painted by a woman.
Mm,
That's always fun when a woman's
yeah.
painted a woman. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so this week I'm dealing with another female artist, which has its usual foibles in terms of information, what we know, what we don't know. I don't have a great deal on this specific painting, but I will go into what I do have. I'd kind of chosen it more as an example of her work and her
Mhm.
skill
Mhm.
and the kind of things that she was producing and the people she was working for.
Mhm.
So, Sarah Miriam Peale is widely considered to be the first successful professional female artist in the USA, which is a bit of a mouthful, but I think we're just covering bases um, in terms of there are probably other professionals, but she was actually doing really well at it. It wasn't a hobby, it was her
Mhm.
living. Sarah was born in May 1800 into a family of other artists, the most notable of which was her uncle, Charles Wilson Peale. Charles Wilson Peale was best known for his portraits, and his portrait of Washington at Princeton, 1779, sold for £21.3 million in 2005. It's the most
Wow.
ever paid for a portrait in the United States. So this is the caliber of her family.
Okay.
We have to do a quick sidebar on this guy, her uncle, because I just think it's worth
Mm.
putting a bit of context in. Um, so her uncle Charles had quite a lot of children. He had three wives. He lost
Mhm.
a couple of wives along the way. Not all of the children survived to adulthood. But here, I don't think you will enjoy, are the names of some of his children. Angelica Kaufman Peale. Angelica Kaufman Peale was Peale's favorite painter.
Okay.
Raphael Peale, who was considered to be the first professional American painter of still life. Rembrandt Peale,
Oh
portrait
my
painter,
gosh.
inventor, and businessman.
Yeah.
Rubens Peale, museum administrator and artist. Sophonisba Anguissola Peale, who was an ornithologist.
Why do they keep for the women? They keep the surnames as
I
well?
don't
Like,
know.
what's going on?
And Titian Ramsay Peale, who was also an ornithologist.
Okay.
Um, Lots of the other Peels were also artists, including Charles's sister-in-law, daughter-in-law, two nephews, two grandnephews, and five granddaughters, and beyond.
Wow.
Yes,
But
they are a dynasty of painters.
those names are just crazy to have. I mean,
Yeah,
to just be
I didn't
called.
know enough about this either. Like, some of these people have painted famous, some of the most famous paintings in American art, like of particularly portraits of presidents
Mhm.
and diplomats and
Mhm.
war heroes. You go on their Wikipedia pages and you see the work and you go, "Oh, I know that painting.
Oh,
Obviously, I know that
yeah.
painting."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and there's a famous painting by Charles Wilson Peale of two of his sons on a staircase. I can't remember which. I think it might be Rubens and Rembrandt Peale, but it's like Rubens and Rembrandt on a staircase, which is so
Yeah.
so trippy to me.
Yeah, it's like
So,
cosplay. Like
mhm.
you can just make a whole family of artists. It's like reminds me of I love to ask people who love art and art history, oh, who are the three painters or artists you would have at a dinner? And
Mm,
it's like, oh, you can just have kids and name them after your favorite artists then. And
mhm.
then there you go.
Yeah,
That's
and make them
so
be
fun.
artists.
But I guess it was also at the time like that American art, North American, United States art was becoming really a thing in itself in
Yeah,
terms of the market and everything. So yeah, it makes
yeah.
sense that if there was a dynasty, well, but this is a real dynasty of
It's a
painters.
real dynasty of painters.
Yeah.
And although the names are like quite surreal and funny to us, their careers and the seriousness with which we should take their work is like, it's no joke.
Mm,
It's we look at
yeah.
like, I'll go into it a little bit more, but yeah, Rembrandt Peale, an amazing painter, like actually
Mm,
really, really great painter. I'll go into it
mm.
more in a moment, but yeah.
So Susanna, is Susanna Peale, but she wasn't that, she was the niece, right? Of so her
Sarah,
sorry, Sarah.
so many Peels.
Wait, sorry, it's Suzanne, is it Susanna Avery who's being painted in this?
Susan Avery. I
Susan
would
Avery.
just double
Sorry.
check. I'm not sure. Yes,
And
Susan
then
Avery
Sarah Peale.
and
So
Sarah Peele.
Sarah Peele's cousins were all of
These are
them,
her
all of
cousins,
the
yeah, and she
artists.
had a
Yeah.
close relationship with her cousins.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so there is a book, as mentioned, called The
Mm.
Art of the Peels, by Carol Eaton Soltis. And I tried to get it, but yeah, just so much money to get it and ship it here, because it's produced by I think it's Philadelphia Museum of Art or something.
Mm.
It's not even available on their website. You have to like get on eBay or something. But it looks great. And
Mhm.
I'm kind of fascinated after sort of just dipping my toe in the water of what the Peels were
Mm.
about. So, back to Sarah. She was born in Philadelphia and was the youngest daughter to her father, James Peale, and he was a miniaturist and still life painter. So, Charles Wilson Peale was her father's older brother.
Mhm.
As she grew up, she spent time working as her father's studio assistant, preparing paints and canvases, but also working on backgrounds and doing finishing touches as well. Her and her sisters had a varied education as they learned homemaking as well as a traditional education, and also they developed their entrepreneurial skills in art with their family.
Mm.
The Peale family are known to have mostly taught each other and have shared skills that way. When I'm saying taught each other, I mean specifically in art and painting. In fact, there's a single ceramic basket that shows up in paintings by 6 different members of the Peale family, including a painting by Sarah herself.
Yeah. That's really nice, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So her first sold works date from about 1816 with subjects such as flowers and still life.
Hmm.
But soon she started to integrate portraiture into her practice, and it became probably one of the most lucrative threads of her work.
Mm.
She spent time in Baltimore painting with her cousin Rembrandt Peale, in 1818, in 1820, and again in 1822. And it's said that he influenced her early style. As I mentioned, Rembrandt Peale, I mean, quite a lot of them do, but Rembrandt Peale has some really amazing paintings. There's one of his brother Rubens with a geranium, which is really beautiful.
Mm.
And he also painted 2 presidents, and his work is held in major national collections in the US.
Mhm.
Um, the director of education at the NMWA, which owns today's painting, said of the family, the size of the family, just the number of children that went on to become artists, had a huge impact because it really helped establish American art as a real practice.
Mhm.
So that dynasty is there in America in its infancy, and just the sheer number of them going out and
Mm.
documenting, particularly people in America at the time,
Yeah.
gives this sort of like foundation of great American art that wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily be there without them.
Yeah. Remind me where they were based, where she was born, like around.
I believe she's born in Philadelphia and then
Yeah.
based in Baltimore for,
Okay. Yeah. Was it Baltimore? Yeah.
yeah, so they're sort of staying in that area, Philadelphia,
Yeah.
Baltimore, Maryland,
Yeah.
and sort of Pennsylvania
Hmm.
vicinity. So her successful family is both a blessing and a curse in many ways. It enabled her to access art education, which was unlike anything other women were able to access at the time. However, it's also part of the reason why her legacy is somewhat obscured. She was overshadowed by the success of other family members, and inevitably there's a few misattributions and
Mm.
maybe a certain lack of interest if it doesn't have a specific Peale name attached. You know,
Mm,
it's a less interesting Peale to have when
mm,
your work is authenticated, I guess.
mm,
Today's painting is from 1821, so it was done in between the two trips to visit her cousin.
mhm,
And it's while she's professionally painting, but perhaps not yet fully established, doesn't have her own studio yet. The portrait is one of a pair, Susan Avery, and the painting of her husband Isaac is the companion piece. It's likely that these were wedding portraits.
mm,
Personally, I think the portrait of Susan is a better painting. I
mhm.
think the face is more naturalistic and softly done, and the lighting is sort of more believable. I find Isaac's painting a little harsh and a little less. I mean, it's a great painting, but it's to me, the look of the face is a little less mature than in
Mm,
style than the one of
mhm.
Susan.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, not the one of Isaac is bad by any stretch.
Yeah.
Their stylish chairs and rich attire indicate their wealth and status.
Mm,
Particularly noticeable in the painting are Susan's earrings and her heart-shaped pendant, as well as
mm.
the tortoiseshell hair combs, which are just visible at the back of her head and in amongst her curls near her face. And
Oh, yeah, that's it. So it's like it's quite a big, almost. So it's like a big structure behind her head.
what of her hair?
The tortoise shell. Is that it?
No,
Like,
tortoiseshell hair
or it's
combs,
here.
like holding the hair in place.
Oh, it's like there
Mm.
behind her head. Yeah.
And it's thought that
Wow.
Isaac produced tortoiseshell hair combs, so I assume that's part of why she's sporting.
Oh, okay. And that would have been very expensive and luxurious then.
Yeah, very expensive
Yeah.
item at that time.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of tortoises in.
No, it would have been all about importing from I guess, well, trade, but also kind of the colonies and stuff like
Mm,
that, wouldn't it? Yeah.
yeah. And she also has this cashmere shawl, which is draped around her arm, and that cashmere again is equally luxurious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's really dressed in her richest and finest for this
Mm.
portrait. So Sarah first exhibited her work at the Pennsylvania Academy, of which her uncle, the big Charles Wilson Peale,
Mm.
was a founder, with Portrait of a Lady in 1818. I've tried to find that particular work. I haven't found it.
Okay.
There's probably quite a few portraits of ladies made in
Yeah.
1818, so it's kind of hard to
Yeah.
identify specifically. And then 6 years later, she was accepted to be an academician at the Pennsylvania Academy of Arts in 1824, along with her sister Anna Claypool Peale, who also became a member at the same time. Anna Claypool Peale was such a mouthful, was an incredible miniaturist, and
Mm.
her work, just like Sarah's, is slowly getting better, more recognition and
Mm.
more appreciation. You mentioned that you'd seen some of the Peele's miniatures.
Yeah, I saw a talk last week at a conference for art. It's the Art History Association conference every year. And it was Catherine Fein, who Fein.
Mm.
Fine, sorry to Catherine for butchering that. Um, but it was fascinating because she's actually looking at mi ivory miniature watercolor paintings. And so
Mm.
James Peale, so Sarah's father, was one of the key figures she's looking at and thinking about the history of ivory and the kind of the way that she thinks about intimacy as well, because they're so small and they would have been used as, you'd hold them sometimes like a pendant, but you'd keep them close to your body. And she's thinking about like the material of ivory and elephants and the history of the trade and the killing of elephants and things like that. And it's really, yeah, there are some, I really encourage people to have a look at her work, but also at the miniatures because they are very, very different to, well, they're different to this kind of painting, obviously, because of scale. But then
Mm.
actually, when you look, it's amazing how the ivory is used, like the white of the ivory is used for the skin.
Mm,
in a very similar way to here, in the way that the light has been used in this painting to really bring out the whiteness of Susanna Avery's skin.
mm.
Susan Avery. Sorry, I don't know why I keep calling her Susanna. I think
You're
it's the
making it
A.
posher than it is.
I know it's the A of Avery. I'm like, obviously I'll just add another A. Anyway, um, yeah, it was really cool. But yeah, it was funny listening to the talk because um yeah, Catherine had to say at the beginning, like, I'm going to use first names because I just can't use the surname because they're all Peels and it's
Yeah,
all like they're all making portraits of each other as well. Um, so
yeah.
yeah, it was very cool. But this is like so it's interesting to learn about Sarah Miriam Peale today.
Mm.
One of them. I see what you mean about the overshadowing. Like you can just get lost.
Yes, it's worth
Yeah.
bringing up because it's really relevant to her trajectory and where she is
Mm.
now, and what's going on with her work and
Yeah.
that. But at the same time, it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's like Catherine's project is focusing on one type of painting in the
Mm,
family.
yeah,
Um, and you kind of have to pick which way you're going down with it. Yeah.
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 uh,
So yeah, I'm glad you picked it. 2 weeks ago, I had no idea about the Peels, honestly.
and suddenly they've become a major, a major player
Yeah.
in our world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so Sarah and Anna were the first females to become members of the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, and over
Mhm.
the years, 8 other Peale women went on to exhibit there.
See.
It's mad. It's mad how many there are. I'm the only one in my family.
Yeah, I was like, I don't even know how maybe in those days you could your parents had more of a say in which direction you're going in. But now imagine
Inherited a
trying
trade board, didn't you?
exactly. But now you'd even if you want like I'd want my kids to be musical, but and that doesn't mean they're going to be musical. You know what I mean?
Gonna make your name renowned for
In a
music.
way, the more that parents like say, "Oh, you should do this," it's like I don't know if it actually works anymore.
Probably not.
Guaranteed way of making the kid do the absolute opposite. Yeah.
So Sarah eventually opened her own studio in Baltimore in 1831, and
Hmm.
over 100 commissioned portrait paintings are known from her time in Baltimore.
Wow.
She was known as the most prolific artist in the city during that era, and her oil paintings were quickly sought after by congressmen, diplomats, and other wealthy individuals in the Maryland area. Her portrait work is regarded as stylistically unique due to her use of detail in furs, lace, and fabrics, as well as realistic faces, skin,
Mm,
and hair. Just like other members of her family did, she also completed portraits of important political figures.
mm,
The collection of the US House of Representatives includes a portrait of President Millard Fillmore, attributed to Sarah. Fillmore was the 13th president and the last to be neither a Republican or a Democrat. Fact of the day.
mm,
She also had 4 sittings with the war hero, the Marquis de Lafayette, during 1824 in his return to the US.
mm,
So yeah, she's also ticking the Peale box of painting war
mm,
heroes, diplomats, and politicians. Sarah left Baltimore and moved to St. Louis, or St. Louis, I think it's St. Louis, in 1847. And the reason for this move is unknown, as she was doing really well where she was. We
mm,
also know very little about her time there and the work that she made there. It's thought that she made plenty of work, and we know she was winning prizes and she's mentioned in newspapers and everything. But it's thought that a lot of that work has ended up in private hands and is yet to surface.
mm,
Newspaper articles mention her notable sitters, but where all of that work has gone remains a mystery.
mm.
Some of
Wow.
it, only a few works from that
Mm.
time have surfaced so far. So it's
How
thought
long was she there for?
she was there. I do think she moved back to live with her family, but I have to
Oh,
say
she did. Okay.
I didn't
Yeah.
add that in. So I think it was like 10, 20 years, but that's a real while.
Okay. Yeah, but she did move back. It
Yeah,
was a period, yeah.
yeah, because this is 1847, and she
Mhm.
died in 1885. So I
Mm.
think she was there for a while, but
Wow. Yeah.
the whole remainder of her life.
I'm finding it really useful that she was born in 1800 as
It's
somebody who's
great, isn't it? We
terrible
always
at
know how
math.
old she is.
Like, I just know how old she is at every point.
Exactly. So another contributing factor to Sarah's relative obscurity is that there was no independent archive of her writings. In the 1980s, a woman came to the Maryland Historical Society with a selection of paintings by Sarah, both still life and portrait, of her ancestors, and she promised to donate them all along with 2 boxes of Sarah's letters with her family, or with, yeah, the lady's family. She would not let, this is a quote from the curator of the centre, she would not let us photograph or copy the correspondence, but she was bequeathing it all to us, recalled Styles Tuttle Colwell, who was the centre's curator at the time. But when a minister delivered the donation some years later, there was only one painting. And he told Colwell he had burnt the correspondence because it was, quote, too intimate.
Oh my gosh.
So,
That's so horrible.
yeah, so the multiple paintings went down to one and the correspondence went down to nothing.
So there was all of that correspondence.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Yeah.
know that it was destroyed. Do we know who it was destroyed by?
Well, I think the minister
It was
admitted
him.
to the correspondence being destroyed, but we don't know why he went from a large selection of paintings to just the one. It doesn't say.
But can you imagine you're sat and there's a fire, you've got a fire going in the fireplace and you think, I'm gonna burn all of these letters from Sarah Peale. Like, that's just so, like, that's erasing somebody's whole history.
Yeah. We
Oh
know so
no.
much about artists from their letters. They come
I
up
know.
time when we're talking about different artists. We talk about Van
Yeah.
Gogh, we talk about Gainsborough, we talk about all
Yeah.
sorts of painters. We refer to their letters, and it's such a shame.
Yeah, my friend she's doing her PhD on French printmaker Felix Boueux, and she spent loads of time reading his letters. It's the way that she knows his character as well. It's not just factual, but it's a sense of somebody's person, like persona and who they are and their friends and connections. Oh, that's just excruciating.
Yeah,
Oh, it's almost worse that you know that it was there.
yeah, that it existed and that someone chose
Yeah.
to unexisted.
Mm.
And this is the 1980s. It
I
wasn't,
know, I feel I should get my pitchfork out actually when I go over to the States eventually.
who did it?
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
So, Sarah has been, unsurprisingly, much undervalued on the art market, which
Hmm.
again perpetuates her lack of renown. It's a
Mm.
self-fulfilling thing. Her auction record currently stands at £277,000, a price that was achieved at Christie's New York in 2023 for an 1822 still life called Watermelon, which is a really beautiful painting. It overtook a benchmark of £61,000, which is quite a jump,
Yeah.
had stood for her work since 1996. In fact, it's believed it's the only other time in the last 10 plus years that Sarah's work has achieved more than £20,000.
Wow.
Mm.
I wonder, yeah, and that seems to be because of the type of painting it was rather than her name.
Yeah, because it is a really beautiful painting, and I think a
Yeah.
couple of other artists have referenced that painting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that price that had held 61,000, I believe,
Mm.
before the large watercolor work was her most expensive portrait of an unidentified mother and child. Before that, you have to go back to 1994, which is when the National Museum of Women in the Arts purchased today's pair of matching works,
Mm.
Susan and Isaac Avery, at the Butterfield's auction house in San Francisco for £21,000 or dollars. Sorry, what
Dollars.
a
Yeah.
steal! 2 paintings.
Yeah. How much was that? I'm really bad at figuring out because relative to today, that was more,
Yeah, in the 90s.
but still pretty crazy for 2 paintings as well.
Yeah.
Kind of shows you as well why museums that like the Museum for Women Artists is, or Women in the Arts, is important because they will really want those acquisitions.
Yeah,
So to build a collection like that, they've got different priorities.
yeah, and they're getting
Which,
ahead of the market in many
yeah,
ways.
exactly. Yeah. But the one we're looking at today is very early on in her career. She was a young woman.
Yeah, before she even
Yeah.
established her own studio.
Yeah. And
Mm.
I'd love to see the textures because she clearly does have really great textures and the details of the clothing and everything. And if you think
Yeah.
about the types of people who she then went on to paint portraits of, having someone who could do really detailed representations of like your clothes and your hair and all of your finery,
Mm.
it would have been, especially at that time, the ideal way. So she's clearly already making, yeah, getting a sense of that clientele
Yeah,
with this
that's what they
painting. But
want.
she must have improved as well if she's doing it at this age really well.
Yeah, it's really worth looking through the work that she produced.
Mm,
Um, I almost feel like she had two ways of working. Some of
mm,
them seem quite simply painted, and some of them
mm.
really rich, like this one today, like have a real richness to it.
Yeah.
I wonder if she had works that she made a certain way, like for a lesser price
Mm,
or quicker or something.
mm. Or
Because when I looked
studio,
through the
like
artists,
I wonder if she had people working for her in her studio. If it was that big, I don't know. It's hard to tell sometimes.
yeah, I really don't know, but I do think if you go online and have a little look, listener,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's worth having a little scroll through because there is a real um, it's just a difference in the quality of them. Some of them are really incredibly rich and impressive, and some of them
Mm.
have a much lighter touch and feel a little more naive, and then doesn't seem to relate to the date that they were painted. So I don't know if there's like
Interesting.
something going on there. I don't know.
Maybe you had to pay her more for more detail.
Maybe. I
I
do
mean,
wonder, she's from an entrepreneurial family. I do wonder if she had more than one way of working.
yeah. And also, if her father was a miniaturist, she clearly had those skills of real detail.
Mm,
But equally, there are so many ways of figuring out how much would be paid for a painting. It
mm,
could be, do you want me to spend this amount of time or this amount of time on it? And if you're paying less, I'm not going to spend as much time on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Sarah is still going back to her pricing, is still one of the only Peale is still the only Peale woman to have hit six figures in the sale of their work. Actually, I put only is still the only one of the Peale women. Yes, so just her,
Mm.
compared to at least seven of the family men.
Oh,
I guess it's really unsurprising. It's just like, look, at this point, are we shocked?
it's just sad because you usually don't have such a direct comparison when it's literally the same family.
Yes, like brothers and cousins and everyone else is doing
Yeah.
fine.
Usually it's contemporaries. It's like Judith Leyster and Franz Hals, but at least they were contemporaries. Whereas
Mm.
this is like brother and sister or
Yeah.
cousins. Yeah.
What is quite exciting is that in September 2027, the exhibition Becoming a Peale will open at the Winter Museum in Delaware, and the show will display works by the Peales and go into the lasting legacy of this first family of American artists.
Mm.
And the exhibition will include Sarah's first self-portrait of 1818, which
Oh,
the Smithsonian own but have not hung since 1974, which was only for an exhibition, despite referring to it as one of their treasures.
huh.
And
Hmm.
Sarah is obviously herself like very much overdue a retrospective exhibition of her own. There's plenty of her work around.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's just interesting that the
Yeah.
Smithsonian have had that portrait for so long and they
Yeah,
can't
especially
believe it.
with a growing interest in female artists as well. You would think that, I mean, when the National Gallery in London tried to get out their their female artists is, it's a handful, but they really do try.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised by that. Yeah. I also feel there's been a missed opportunity with the pun of appeal. I'm like, I was trying to think becoming a peel. I'm like, shouldn't it be a big appeal? Anyway, I don't know. I was just my suddenly started thinking, come on, there's a pun in there, but maybe that's just ridiculous, and you need
Have some
to,
peel buns.
yeah,
Put them in the comments.
yeah. That should be good, and it will also probably there will be a good catalogue, I imagine, to go alongside that exhibition, which,
Yeah. I would be, yeah, it might, you never know, it might end up being a show that does well and
yeah.
transfers because like there's so much work by them in the States. I think, I mean, I don't know what there has been in the past. I'm sure there's been other exhibitions in the past, but now
Mm,
you're including the female peels in a more prominent way. I think that's exciting.
yeah.
Hopefully, it's something that eventually will travel. I would love to see that show.
Oh yeah. And also the history in the United States of that period. I mean, you're covering most of the 19th century, the Civil War,
Yeah.
like so much going on. Yeah. You have were they working around independence as
Mm.
well? I don't know. Yeah. So I imagine it would be quite a challenging show to curate because
Mm.
there were so many. But a great lens. It's quite rare that we have a family that we can go into. But Sarah's generation of the family would have been, middle-aged by the time it was the Civil War.
Yeah.
And if they were based in Baltimore and New York, I mean, it would have been very present for
Yeah.
them. So yeah, I think it could be a really interesting, well, clearly becoming a Peale. I just hear appeal like it's appealing, but I need to stop. Um, yeah, it's great. I am looking forward to actually trying. Did you find when you were looking it up as well that could you see a lot of differences between the other family members and their paintings? Because I imagine they all shared quite a lot of stylistic trait.
There was quite a bit.
Mm.
I found that the self-portraits were quite revealing in terms of style, and
Mm.
they were sort of differentiated everyone a little better. There was a
Yeah.
great family portrait by Charles Wilson Peale.
That was in
Um,
Catherine Fine's talk. It was
yeah,
really good.
and it's really interesting because I think they had such a rigorous training that even though quite a lot of them did other things, they also would like paint the president and then like be a businessman. It's really quite strange when you think about it, like in today's terms, if you were a good enough painter to do that, then you wouldn't have other like strings to your bow. But
Mm.
they were so successful that yeah, some of his sons, her cousins,
Mm.
were doing multiple things, including painting, and still producing some of the most famous paintings in the US, which is
Yeah.
just crazy.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. So Sarah never married, and she died in 1885 at the age of 85. And
Yeah.
she's buried in the Gloria Day church burial ground in Philadelphia.
Mm. Never married. I'm always like, maybe she was gay, but that's not how it works. That's just not how it works. Um, but it is interesting. I suppose if you're at that level of society, you also can not marry potentially.
Well, yeah, I mean, and also if she was enjoying being an artist, marrying is always a risk that they might end up not making work anymore. And I think that did happen to a couple of her sisters. I also think
Mm.
she's not the only sister that didn't marry. So there's choices to be made. You can't, you'd have to find someone who actually wants you to, who's happy with you continuing your practice and how that reflects on
Yeah.
them or looks on them. And I think that's quite tricky in itself at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah, true. You don't want to be like Judith Leyster and then have your husband, all of your works attributed to your husband. I still think that's outrageous. That was Judith Leyster, right? I was like,
I thought Judith Leyster was attributed to
Franz Hals.
and
I
then
swear
Nicolina
some of her
Wattier.
works, I think some of her works, though, her
Okay.
husband, I was
I
like,
think maybe a few. I think we had
or
the same.
she worked in
Oh,
his workshop, I
yes,
think.
yes, that's right. She worked in his workshop, and then there was confusion after she passed away. And
Yeah,
Nicolina Wattier worked in her brother's workshop,
that was it.
and her work
That's
got
it.
yeah.
Yes, Sarah Peale dodged a bullet with that.
Yes,
Good for her.
good for her. Don't get in anyone else's workshop.
Just
They
all of your
will take your credit.
cousins. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the extent of what I could find on
Right.
Sarah.
Nice. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I enjoyed it very much. And Susan Avery, and she was a wealthy woman, presumably.
Yeah, I don't know too much about her. What I
Yeah.
got from her, I got from the museum website.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how much more there is to know, essentially. But yeah, a beautiful painting.
Mm, indeed.
Thank you for joining us this week. We can never be 100% sure of the accuracy of historical events. However, the information we are providing is based on our own research. If there's a painting you'd like to hear us discuss, please let us know on social media. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe for weekly episodes.